All right. Well, great evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It is Sunday night, so it's time for another webisode of Marriage by Design. I'm your host, James Pincher. You joined as always by my wonderful, lovely, gorgeous, beautiful, fantastic wife, Yolanda Penn.
Hello and welcome everyone.
Hello. And what voice is that?
Hello.
Is that your customer service voice?
Probably.
I
I don't use
don't
that much.
I don't even know if that's a customer service voice. I
I
don't know
don't know.
what that is. Yeah. So shalom. Welcome to the show. We are shout out to Nicole for coming in, tuning in with us. Listen, excited about tonight's topic. Here's where this came from. We're talking about generational success, generational wealth. We were asked to speak to some parents this past week about parenting. Okay, and of course, here at Marriage by Design, we're all about teaching people how to have an intentional marriage.
Right.
And the reason we want to do that and we focus on that is because we're all about the family, and marriage is the cornerstone of family. So, yeah, while we pride ourselves as being marriage educators, it really being driven by our focus on family. Parenting kind of comes in the territory. You get the crossover here with marriage and parenting, even though we certainly don't have a parent by design program.
No.
We don't have a parent by design program. We got marriage by design for you.
Right.
But this parenting thing is probably the most challenging task that I feel like I've had in life. I think so, for sure. And I'm gonna say that in a positive way. Sometimes challenges are exciting. It's very rewarding. It's very fulfilling, no doubt about it. But it's certainly challenging. Okay, so we were asked to come and speak about building generational wealth, and we're asked to speak about parenting, and we decided, to go for and talk about generational wealth, because that's what everybody talks about nowadays. And so we're really just going to kind of share some of the things that we shared earlier this week when we were asked to speak to some parents. So without any further ado, we're going to get into it and talk about generational wealth. Really, particularly one element that so many people really overlook. Okay, before we talk about the top things that we feel like you need to know about generational wealth and generational success, let's talk about what are the common things that most people focus on when they start talking about generational success. They talk about generational wealth because it's so in vogue now, right?
It is. It's definitely in vogue. It's create family legacy, something you can pass down to your kids and your children's children. And when they mean pass down, they mean finances, passing down money so that they don't have to, be concerned about money. So that's the biggest thing that you hear about generational wealth.
Yeah, and everybody talks about it. It's so in style right now for everybody. Like, I'm about building generational wealth.
Right.
I'm building generational success. Everybody talks about that, but then everybody focuses on like education. Getting their kids educated, or financial literacy. Like that's another one, right? Estate planning, of course. You talk about inheritance, like what to leave it behind. And there's one area that is so underrepresented when we talk about generational wealth, because why education is important, financial literacy is certainly important, estate planning is important. Truth of the matter is, like education, for instance, how much emphasis is put on education, that alone does not guarantee wealth in one generation, let alone multiple generations. Like education isn't the number one indicator of how successful you'll be.
Right, because I think you've spoken that how in the millions don't even last. So you can be a millionaire, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that even if you pass it down, that your children won't, what is that word, squander it. So
whatever. That's when we get into kind of some of the estate planning, but even in building success, for one, there's multiple metrics of success, right? Often when we have these conversations, everybody is just thinking about the financial side of success. But there's a lot of people who are making a lot of money, and are they successful if they're full of mental health issues, depression, Hollywood people got tons of money and they don't have successful relationships, healthy families. They're strung out on substance abuse, trying to sedate themselves from a life they really don't like. Committing suicide. We've seen a lot of rich people, in Hollywood commit, suicide, take their life. So is that success? No, but we always just go straight towards, financial success. But even if we did want to say success is about finances, education isn't the best metrics to measure whether or not you're going to reach financial success. There's so many other things. The smartest person in the class, the valedictorian, isn't always the richest person.
Usually it's not.
Right.
The valedictorian usually is the CEO for somebody else's business. That's what they climb and aspire to do, to work for somebody else and build whoever else's dream.
Right. What do they say? A students teach B students to work for C students.
Right. I've never heard that.
A students teach B students to work for C students.
I love it.
And I was a C student, okay? If I could see your paper, I would have your grade. Right? So education, again, it's not that it's not important, but it's overemphasized. Everybody thinks education is the key to success. It's not the key to success, let alone generational success. Financial literacy, again, important, but is it number one? I wouldn't say so. Like, even when it comes to managing finances, because financial literacy is a lot about like managing finances. Making money and managing it are two different things. Now you need both, I think, but a lot of times when people focus on financial literacy, they're about understanding credit, balancing the checkbook, so on and so forth, how to have a budget. That's financial literacy. And I haven't met any millionaires, and I know several. I know a lot of them, but I've never met one millionaire, multimillionaire, decamillionaire, billionaire. I actually have a billionaire contact. And I've never talked to one and say, hey, how'd you do it? And they say, coupons. Like, financial literacy is what helped me become a billionaire. That's not what it is. So listen, financial literacy, estate planning. You touched on it already. Like 70% of the stuff that you leave behind through inheritance, 70% of the time, it doesn't make it last through that next generation.
Wow.
And 90% of the times it doesn't last 2 generations. Only 10% of what's left behind makes it past 2 generations. So while we want to talk about generational wealth, generational success, education is cool, financial literacy is cool, estate planning is cool, but that's not the number one thing you need to focus on, right?
Right.
Here it is. Nicole kind of already started talking about it right here. Listen, your value is the most important. Your value is the most important. And we agree, and we want to get more granular, more specific about like where it comes to value. It's on family. It's on marriage, and the building block of family is marriage.
Right. Which people sometimes don't understand or see how that's the case. But we're gonna break it down so that you can understand, because who you marry is the number one effector of all aspects of your life. So, do you want a easier marriage, or do you want a harder marriage? All of that is determined by who you tie the knot with.
Well, so even in the terms generational wealth or generational success, it's right there in the term. Generational wealth. Everybody focuses on the wealth part first. Like, how you building generational wealth and you don't even have a generation? You ain't even taking care of your value system of, like, what are the values you have in family? You're trying to build wealth generational instead of generational wealth.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So, we got first live here from Anthony O'Neill Show. Glad to have you on Pink Dream 04. Listen, we got to focus on family, because if you consider the state of relationships today, right? You got what was it? 64% of Black children in 2019 were in single family.
64% of Black children were in single family homes, and that's according to the U.S. Census. And so we have some work to do with building our family.
59% of Black mothers have children with multiple partners. Because I know some people will make the argument, well, single parent homes. Just because somebody's not married doesn't mean that the parent's not there. They might just be, not married, but they're cohabitating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but how about 59% of Black mothers have multiple partners that they've had their children with?
Mm-hmm.
So I know this polyamorous, the whole thing is gaining more traction and more people into it, but it ain't that big of a percentage.
No,
so
it's not even.
So they're not
1%.
living with both of the baby daddies.
Right.
There's some broken homes going out here.
Right.
So how are we going to be building generational wealth, generational success when our family is broken down? Right? When you got 85% of the people in prison come from a fatherless home, right? Single mothers are 600 times more likely to be in poverty than a married mom. You got children and 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. So we want to talk about education. We got to get, education. We got to get economic, close the economic gap. All of these different metrics are affected by the breakdown of the family. And if we're saying success is more than just finances, how about this? Children who come up in a fatherless home, they're 2 times more likely to be obese.
Yeah,
high blood pressure, hypertension is the number one, killer amongst our people.
Right. So you're talking about the health aspect. And so that is very important because we want our generations to last, and we want them to last as long as possible without complications. And we know that as we get more and more overweight, that's more and more medication that you need, and that is more and more strain on your heart. And so if we really want to build a successful family unit, we need to take our health into consideration as well.
So watch this. Fatherless homes, like if your daughter grows up in a fatherless home, she's 7 times more likely to be a teen mom. But we focused on education for generational success. How about we focus on family and having that intact so we can avoid the teen pregnancy, we can avoid the prison, we can avoid the poverty that comes from having these broken homes. So when we consider the state of relationships today,
that's what it is, a state of emergency.
State of emergency, right?
It is.
There's this constant gender war going on. You see it all over everywhere. YouTube, right? Anywhere on social media, there's this gender war going on, and a lot of it really boils down to this straw man argument of a feminist attack on masculinity. That's the root of a lot of this, and we're going somewhere with what does this have to do with generational wealth? Well, a lot of the arguments come from feminist ideology that men have oppressed women historically, and men are ruling the world. Well, the truth of the matter is, men have never ruled the world. Okay, men have never collectively ruled the world. Let me say it one more time. Men have never collectively ruled the world. Good social media follow for you is Eli Marcus, Markus. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook. He writes a lot of great commentary in this regard. And the truth is that it's not men who have ruled the world. Successful families have ruled the world.
Right.
There's a small percentage of families historically that have ruled the world and made decisions for the world. It's like the top 1%, top 0.5%. It's a small fraction of successful families that rule the world, because men collectively, like poor men don't have any power in the world. Here's poor men's reward. They get to go out and die in the wars that were constructed by these powerful families. They get to work in the dangerous jobs building skyscrapers for these wealthy families. They get to have inhumane hours and pay for these wealthy families. They're not ruling anything.
Right. So agree. It's the family, and by family we mean the mother, father, and as the children get older, them as well. So the whole family.
Yeah. So if we understand this and we want to have our part and our stake in that, then we got to focus on the family. So again, considering relationships of today, stand away from this feminist straw man argument that men rule the world. And so it's conditioning our women to want to be liberated from men ruling the world, when that's a straw man argument in the first place, because poor men have never really ruled the world. Black men, we're not ruling anything in this country collectively, right?
Right.
You know, we don't have a patriarchy in our, you know, in Black communities, right? We got to see that there's this piss in the dating pool. So say the singles. So the singles say, right? The singles
that sounds so gross.
I mean, this is their words, right?
Glad I'm not saying.
Single women be like, yeah, it's piss in the dating pool. The single men be like, this piss in the dating pool. The dating pool is so horrible, right? And we see all of this, but we know that who you said it, who you partner with for life, who you decide to marry, we know that is probably one of the most pivotal decisions in terms of how successful you're going to be, let alone the success of the future generations, right? People growing up talk about daddy issues. Well, they wish they had their daddy around. Okay, so you realize the detriment and effect on your life that the broken family you had has towards your success, but you don't prioritize it as something to focus on for generational success, generational wealth. We're going to focus on education, financial literacy, so on and so forth. See, we got to break this cycle at some point. We got to break this cycle. So the key is to teach and prioritize marriage, okay?
Right.
Marriage is the number one progenitor to legacy, point blank period, right? And it's the foundation of building Black community. The most underemphasized area of generational success is family and marriage, right? So we want to give y'all, 3 keys here to preparing your children.
Right. I'm glad we're talking about the children, because I'm sorry, it's a lost cause for some people. You get on up there in age and you may have made some wrong decisions, and we're not saying you are thrown out with the bathwater, but the children really do need to be the focus for generational wealth. Of course, you can sow and feed into them, but let's sow into them these 3 concepts we're about to tell you. And they're going to blow your mind, so put your seatbelt on.
All right, so if we want to prepare our children for generational success, generational wealth, number one, we need to be preparing our children to marry young.
Whoa.
Okay? We need to prepare them to...
What's young?
Marry chaste. We're going to break it all down.
Okay.
Number 3, we need to prepare our children to marry with your involvement. Just arranged marriage. We'll just go ahead and say it. Arranged marriage. We got, okay?
Arranged
marriage.
Arranged marriage.
All right. These 3 things, if we focused on, now you got to put these all collectively together.
Correct.
Okay? You got to put them collectively together.
Because it doesn't work. It doesn't work if you don't. If you marry young and you're not chaste, it's a problem.
And you don't have involvement
from the parents. All 3 work really, really well.
Right? It's like eggs, flour, and milk are the 3 main ingredients of baking a cake. You got egg and flour, you're gonna make a mess. You got flour and milk, you're gonna have a mess. And doing things, not only having the right ingredients, but doing things in the right order as well. Right? Like imagine you have eggs, flour, milk, and then you bake it, and then you take it out and then stir it up. Like you had all the right ingredients, you did all the right steps, but you did it out of order, right? You still gonna have a mess. So listen, we want to, and when we say marry young, it would be foolish for the average person to run out here and get married young nowadays. And this goes against conventional thinking. And we're talking about both men and women, because a lot of people advocate that men need to, go build and find purpose and do these type of things. And, they don't figure that out till they're 35. They're not ready to get married at 35. That's problematic. It has some issues. If you really unpack the implications of it, that causes that's not the ideal scenario. Right? One, if we could just talk about purpose for a minute, most people don't really have an understanding of what purpose is. And so they're having men delay making adult responsible decision of getting married and being responsible for himself or a wife and growing a family after building and chasing a career, where people have career changes all the time.
I think that the number I last looked at was 7 career changes over your lifetime.
I'm actually in the process of going through a career shift right now. And I just turned 39. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, right? But we doing all right, you know what I mean?
Right.
So the point is, when you have men defer marriage because they got to figure out their purpose, but you don't really understand that purpose is not about what you do. It's about who you are. Then you are really misguiding a lot of men. And that's what the whole conversation is about. A man need to figure out his purpose. I see, I'm in my working in my purpose now. And when people say that about working in their purpose, they're talking about what they do.
Right.
They're not talking about your purpose is who are you purposed to be? What type of man? Yes, a man does need to figure out his purpose, but it doesn't take to 35 and 40 years old to do that.
Right.
It doesn't take the 35 to 40-year-old to have a crystallized vision in your mind of what type of man you're going to be. And if that's purpose and you can figure that out as a young man, then why are you delaying marriage behind purpose? Because you've been taught and bought into the idea that purpose is your career. My purpose is to be an attorney. Well, it's going to take you some time to do that. My purpose is to, build this business or whatever the case is. That's not your purpose.
Right.
Okay. So when you have a man defer marriage because he thinks that he needs to go build his career, it affects number 2, being chased. We're saying, hey, don't wait till you get married to have sex, but don't get married till you're 35 years old. We know we lying. We know we don't believe it.
And if we're not lying, with any healthy male that would wait that long, he's going to develop some horrible addictions to pornography. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
And with those horrible addictions, they will definitely affect your marriage, because chances are your wife is not going to be able to, hold a candlestick to what you see all the different women doing on those.
It's not even about what they see.
Okay.
Your wife isn't going to be able to hold a candlestick to your hand.
Oh, wow. Because you've messed yourself up.
You done jacked your whole self up, right? I don't know if you remember. This was years ago. It was something on CNN where the dude was sitting there talking, and he was they were talking about the issue. It was some special on CNN.
Yeah, I remember.
And they were saying, the wife was saying, "Oh, he's a wonderful husband in all these different areas, but it's one thing, we don't have sex." And I said it.
You said it.
I said it as soon as she said it. I said, "Oh, he's watching porn, right?" And as soon as he came on the screen, he's like, "Well, let's be real. Like, all men watch porn. Lie, right? All men don't.
Right.
But your part, the way you squeezing and it's right amount of pressure, right time, like a woman's body doesn't move the same way that your hand do." I remember reading one study. It wasn't a study, but it was like an anecdotal experience of 2 virgins that got married, right? And they were so frustrated and upset because even though they were virgins, they both had porn addictions and masturbation before they got married. And so they were frustrated because, well, you don't move like my toy moves, or you don't pleasure me the way my hand does. And they would get frustrated, 2 virgins trying to have sex with each other. And then they'd be like, "Well, forget, I'll just do myself. I'll just fix myself. I just get myself out." Right?
Wow.
And so again, like, we just how many that's watching right now? How many of y'all ladies y'all will want to marry a 35-year-old virgin? You ain't trying to marry no 35-year-old virgin. All right, so let's get people ready to marry younger, right? It's before we even get to the chastity part of it, because that's a whole nother key point as well. What is it about the trauma and the baggage? Right?
Yeah. From all the relationships and all the bodies and all of that stuff that you would have if you're waiting to, what's the age right now? 28?
It's probably like 28.
27,
like
28.
Average, yeah.
So 27, 28, and all those college years that, girls have gone out and had them hot girl summers. Or what else do they call them? It's called Hot Girl Summer. It was something else. He was watching the show and they called it something else. Just going out and having...
The whole phase?
Yeah, there you go. The whole phase. So, having all that mental energy, emotional energy, soul energy, spiritual energy, because when you're having sex with somebody, you're tied to that person. So, and the people are like, "Oh, but you wear a condom and, it's not going to affect you," all kind of stuff. Your spirits are going to intertwine. And so we want to make sure that that part of being chaste, why take that into a marriage? Why have to go deal with going out and getting counseling over all of these different issues, over all of these different men, and then the trauma behind, oh, he gonna treat me like this, or he gonna treat me like that, or the trauma and drama in that, oh, he, the guy that I had sex with so many years ago, I'm still thinking about him and how he did it and all of these other kind of things. So
it's gotten so bad now that it has become common wisdom. This is applauded in any arena where people say, everybody should have therapy before they get married. Right? Like mental health and therapy is something that is commonly talked about. And that's good in a lot of respects.
Right.
Right? But it's gotten so bad that people think that is good. I remember having people argue me down in the clubhouse. I was like, somebody needing, requiring therapy, or everybody should have marriage counseling. I don't. I feel like if my children need marriage counseling from somebody else before they get married, I messed up somewhere. And this was like foreign. Everybody was scratching their head. They were arguing me down about this, right? Because the assumption is you're going to have so much trauma and baggage that you need some professional help. Now, if you do have trauma on that type of level and baggage, by all means, get that professional help.
Right.
Right? Advocate of therapy. But why is nobody having the conversation about how do we not pick up this baggage and pick up this trauma? How do we, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The best time to prepare your house prepare your roof is while the sun is shining. So if people get married younger, you don't pick up all of this baggage, all of this trauma that you need therapy from. You got this trauma from that 8-year relationship that you had in your 20s that wasn't going nowhere. You got this trauma from being messy in your 20s, leaving you bitter, in your 30s. Being young and messy leaves you being old and bitter. Right?
So true.
And so people have this thing about finding themselves. Right? I just, you need time to find yourself. And what they end up finding is a whole bunch of mess.
A bunch of STDs. It's crazy how now, when we were younger, or when I was younger, it wasn't a vaccination that everybody had to go get. Now it's like, what is it, HPV? And everybody has HPV. So they want you to go get a vaccination as early as 12 because they already suspecting, oh, you're going to get it. Go ahead and get your child on this HPV strand because this is something that they could pick up as sexually transmitted. So you need to go ahead and start getting them the shots for it now. What? So, but guess what? It wouldn't be an issue if two people come together, both chaste virgins, then that's not an issue.
Right. And Travis' point here, he says, I think we all come with baggage and trauma. No one is ever fully healed, but I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. So we all have a lot we all have different things that we're going to deal with. Like a lot of the trauma and the baggage people have might be mommy and daddy issues, right? And we're going to break down and unpack, the whole marriage part of it, right? So if we're all going to deal with something anyway, why add to that is the point, right? And I don't know if I'm convinced though that, while everybody does deal with something that they have to deal with, that it's all to the point where it's just an assumption that everybody on planet Earth needs therapy, like from a professional therapist.
And it's like I tell our kids, we all have challenges that we need to overcome. And you can have steps. Like our oldest daughter is reading a book, Seven
Habits for Highly Effective Teens.
7 Habits for Highly Effective Teens. Yeah. She's reading that book. She reads it daily. And of course, she has challenges. She has sports challenges. She gets nervous in competitions. We talk to her about it, all that kind of stuff. But that's not requiring counseling. Those are challenges that all of us are going to have. And we're giving her the skills that she needs to cope with those. So I really would, if our daughter grows up and she's needing therapy for something, then I would feel like I have failed in some aspect of that. Because that means that we would have caused her to have some type of trauma and not gave her the skills to deal with that, not gave her what she needed to cope with whatever the challenge was. Because that's what it is. We are going to have challenges. How do we deal with those challenges?
Yeah. And so, again, the idea that we all need, marriage, counseling, and therapy from outside of the elders. Yes. Particularly when we're advocating for young marriage, and this would go into the arranged marriage part of it. Particularly when we're advocating for young marriage, we certainly need the counsel and the involvement of some people with more wisdom.
Correct.
But if everything is functional inside of the family, you should have that from the parents. The parents should be able to counsel you on what a healthy, relationship looks like.
And listen to this.
Yeah.
And the spouse's parents, if there's an issue, like I don't necessarily want to go to whoever to talk about this, I want to talk to somebody else, then the spouse's parents should have a intact family unit that they have been raising their son or daughter through. So now we're coming all together as a community, as a tribe. Now we're coming all together and we're going to support this young married couple through the challenges that they are going to have to overcome.
Yeah. So when we look at getting married young, of course, we're going to prevent a lot of the baggage that comes along, a lot of the trauma that people have. But it also creates something as well. So we're talking about preventing something, but what about creating something? It creates a different level of loyalty.
Sure does.
You hear men talk about all of the time about if they achieve some level of success, financial success, career success, and then they get married later in life, right? That there's just not the same level of loyalty typically.
Right.
They have these questions about is this woman really, here with me versus when you partner younger and you build your life together, it engenders a different level of loyalty. You see, like Shannon Sharp, Hall of Famer, NFL broadcaster now on TV, and he talks about, I don't know if I'll ever get married. LeVar Ball telling his sons, like, you have such a level of success, like you're not gonna find it. He was telling Melo, right? LaMelo Ball, like, you're not gonna find her. Why are you in the league? Like, it's not gonna happen because how are you ever really gonna know? And I don't know if I would go that extreme, but it's gonna make it more difficult.
It is.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily go to the absolute, but it's gonna make it more. It's another factor in as well versus building.
Well, he ain't gonna find her in Miami. I don't know where he is, but don't look for anybody there.
Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's a little Miami.
No,
it's not.
It's not, right? So. To this part of being chased, right? It's more than just opinions about it, right? Like there's numbers, to support this, right? Only 6% of virgins divorce within the first 5 years of marriage, opposed to 20% of everybody else, right?
That's almost 3 times as more.
Yeah, no, it's over 3 times. It's almost 4 times.
It is almost 4 times,
right? And women with 10 plus partners before they got married, 33% of them divorced in the first 5 years.
Oh wow!
Right, so you talk about this whole phase, or and I hate to get into like a racial thing, but it seems as if Black women really have some of the most atavistic mating standards.
And if they don't, they sure do talk about it. They sure do talk about it. Because do I think that other races aren't out here, doing their thing and all that kind of stuff? I don't. But why do we have to publicize and put it on Front Street Row? Like, talking about it, showing pictures, the seductive clothes, all of that kind of stuff. You just don't see that in other cultures and other races.
Nicole said, this propaganda to be okay with being a hoe is disturbing. And it's not natural for a woman.
Agreed.
Right? Everything that is normalized isn't natural. It's normal nowadays to be a hoe, right? To have a hoe phase. But it's not the natural way things were intended to be. And you see a lot of times where women who have gone through this whole phase and have affected their ability to pair bond with a suitable mate will leave suitable suitors. Yeah. Okay. They will leave suitable suitors for no other reason other than, I didn't like the sex. Right. Women will admit to this in private. Sometimes publicly will admit to they had a man who was a suitable mate for marriage. And the only reason they left them was because they weren't satisfied sexually. And I can hear women watching live or the replays, I'm supposed to not sexually be, pleased? No,
you're supposed to marry young.
You would have been sexually pleased,
right,
had you not disturbed your sexual metabolism, okay? And now you're with a suitable man, and he's willing to provide a great marriage and family that you can build legacy with, but he don't blow your back out like Jamal did in college. And you think you weren't supposed to have your back blown out by Jamal repeatedly. You know what I'm saying? Over and over, over and over and over. Let me chill out. Okay, let me chill out. Right? You weren't. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
Right. And this is disturbing the whole ability for people to come together and mate properly. And again, if we're talking about generational wealth, you got to have the generations before you had a wealth, right? So, when we look at virgins 4 times less likely to get divorced in the first 5 years. Well, who's a virgin nowadays, right? In the 2010s, only 5% of women were married as virgins versus 21% in the 70s.
Wow.
All right. These are all the components, but the final component, right? Because it's all of these ingredients, right? Yes, get married young. Yes, get married chaste, right? But finally, get married with your parents' involvement. Arranged marriage. Arranged marriage.
Arranged.
Right. Who you're with is probably more important. Like being the right person is more important than doing the right things when it comes to marriage. Right? 95% of the marriage problems would be avoided if you had the right mate and you were the right mate. If you had the right mate and you were the right mate, and this is not getting into, I got to find my one. No. About personal development, about, like some people complain about marriage and their spouse or their situations like, but you picked them. Right? Like, how many people have we known? And it's like they are so upset about something with their spouse. It's like, you picked them with those flaws. You picked who? You. Let me say it again because I want y'all to get it. You picked them.
You alone.
You and you alone. And here's the thing. Women are not suited to vet for themselves. So you picked that man that you complaining about. And women aren't suited to vet for themselves because they tend to pick driven by their emotions.
Right. Which you can see because after you are emotionally involved, you end up ignoring the red flags. And many a friend have I talked to that was divorced within those first 5 years. And you go back and you say, were there any red flags? 100%. Red flags. But they were so tied emotionally. Oh, he'll do better. He'll get better. He'll change. Or it's not that bad. And then you get into the marriage. And within those first 5 years, you're like, you know what? This is just not going to work. And they divorce. The women say, you know what? It's not going to work. And they ask for the divorce.
Well, while you still listen, okay? I said women are not suited to vet for themselves, but men aren't suited to vet for themselves either. Because men tend to choose driven by lust, right? And so when it comes to arranged marriage, this doesn't mean forced marriage. This doesn't mean somebody's going to pick a spouse for you and you like come into America, you ain't going to meet her till your wedding day.
But let me just say this.
Go ahead.
And I'm not a proponent of forced marriage. We wouldn't force our children to marry anybody. But if the choice was what's out there currently in the world versus this is who you're going to marry, forced marriage, then we would say we're proponents of forced marriage. Thankfully, there is arranged marriage, and I know you're going to go get into more of the details of it, but I could not, and our children, I don't believe they would want it because we talk about marriage so often, and my daughter, she's 13, and she's like, well, I'm glad y'all going to be able to help me. You know, right now she's not into boys like that, but of course boys are like, oh, she's so pretty and they like her or whatever else. But, she's like, I'm glad that y'all gonna be there to help. And we talk about relationships, we talk about boys, we talk about sex, we talk about all that stuff on a regular basis. Maybe not daily, but several times a week, it does come up. And so being able to, like you talked about earlier, be the parents that will be involved in the arrangement, but past that, being involved in all aspects of their life.
Yeah. So safety is in the multitude. There's safety in the multitude of counsel, right? And we're involved in all of these different aspects of our children's lives. We want to get involved in their education.
Right.
We want to help them. You know, we're going on every single college visit, right?
Right.
And we're going to leave the choice up to them, but we're going to influence. Why? Because we have more experience, we're smarter, we're wiser. And so we want to give them all this guidance when it comes to their education. We're going to give them input and guidance in terms of their career path. We're going to give them input and guidance on selecting a major. We give them input and guidance.
Everything.
But on his merit, I just go out there, you know, what's a indicator indicator on how your life is going to turn out, how successful you're going to be? Who you mate with or what school you went to? Who you mate with or what your major was? Who you mate with or what career path you choose?
Right.
Who you mate with? We know that we see people whose lives have been derailed. Some of you all have had some derailing, and maybe hopefully you got your life back on track. But some of you all watching this can say, yo, getting with that joker, getting with her, getting with him, jack me up for 5, 10, 15 years. I'm just getting back on track because of making this horrible choice.
So what do you say to the parents that say, well, I've prepared my children to go out there and go to college and to find that significant other? What do you say to them? Because they've taught them along the way what to look for.
One, I'm going to call cap 99 times out of 10, 999 times out of 1,000. Because if you are really that educated about marriage, the importance of it, you know, the ins and outs of it, you're really not going to be okay with just turning it over. Because did you equip them with how to make educational decisions? So then why aren't you just letting them just do that whole journey by themselves? You're not doing it there.
Right.
Have you equipped them with making sound financial decisions? You're not just completely abandoning them there, right? You're not, hey, you're 18 now. I've taught you well. Go figure everything else out. No, you're involved. And so when we say arranged marriage, not forced marriage, arranged marriage could be as simple as, hey, you won't get married unless you have our approval, our blessing. Right. Or it could be all the way to the end of we're going to pick them for you and this is who you're going to marry. But it can look so many different ways. It doesn't have to be one way. So, you know, of course, the route that we're taking is aligning ourselves with families that have, you know, similar worldviews and like-minded, you know, value systems so that we can have a candidate pool for our children to select from. But that's arranging things. That's our involvement. That's us being intentional to give them a leg up and being involved in that versus, go out there, fall in love with somebody, you go fall in love, you get swept off your feet. All of this is just a good way to bust your ass, falling and swept off your feet. Okay. And, like people don't even want to introduce their mate to their parents so they get, oh, you want to meet my parents? We ain't that close. It ain't that serious. We ain't that close yet.
Or the guy's like, I ain't meet your parents. What I need to be do for?
Right. The implication is, let's get super serious first, super emotionally tied, probably having sex, and then you can meet my parents. So when you meet dad, you're not really trying to hear any of the red flags that he says that he sees. You're not trying to hear that. You're already having sex and you in love at this point. So it's a formality. It's a formality, and so game recognized game, right? Amongst y'all friends, have you ladies, have y'all seen one of your girls dating a guy? And all of y'all know he ain't no good for he a dog. Y'all know, and y'all trying to tell her. And she just but y'all don't know him like that, right? And y'all know it. But her emotions is involved. Fellas, have you seen your boy like acting stupid, right? Over a chick that don't mean him no good? Nah, bro, but man, y'all don't know, right? Y'all don't get man. She good, bro. She she means well. She just after this, she cheating on, she playing you, bro. And he just don't see it. Why? Because he's doped up. Why she ain't listening? Because she's doped up. They caught up in the dopamine, right? Of the feelings and the intoxication of the literal chemicals. Same chemicals from doing drugs, right? Drugs just, they're
feel good.
Different drugs inhibit your dopamine blockers and they just enhance, right?
Mm-hmm.
This already, chemical that in its natural levels and natural states is good for you, right? So you're literally like intoxicated like you are on drugs and you're making poor decisions. So listen to the conversations we have about relationships and family and marriage in the social media sphere. And look at the comments and people saying, oh my gosh, I wish I would, they 30 years old, 35, 40 years old, 45 years old, getting epiphanies at 40 years old. Like, man, I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have known when. I wish I would have known back. You wish you would have known that. But instead of using that wisdom now that you're 35, 40, 45 years old, 50 years old, instead of using that wisdom to guide your young offspring at 18, 20, 22 years old, in the early stages of their life, you say, I'm going to guide you on education. I'm going to guide you on career. I'm going to guide you on finances. Go figure that part out, though. How does that make sense?
It makes no sense. I don't understand how we got there. Because back in the day, you would not make a move without the parents' approval. That's the time when we were courting. So you go out there, you will be courting somebody. A girl may bring her fellow over to the home, and that first day he knocking on the door and we meeting parents. That was then. And guess what? It would even be before then when you would say, hey, I like such and such. And your parents were like, oh, yeah, we rock with the Smith family. They got, that young man, he's a good young man. Or it would be like, no, we don't deal with the Smiths. I'm sorry, baby. You can't date him. And so, and guess what they were doing? It was courting. It was dating to marry. People weren't out there just all willy-nilly dating to date, dating to get their feelings involved, dating to get their emotions involved, dating to have sex. It wasn't that. It was literally when you started dating, you were dating to get married. And so I don't know what happened. I'm going to look into it to see what happened. I can guarantee, I'm almost there, that it has something to do with the push on education and the push on college. Because now you're not even in my house for me to see who you're dating. You're in a whole big old college campus where boys and girls all stay together. And it used to be you stayed in different dorms, but now everybody on the same floor.
Well, I would suspect that it's probably was a push towards the materialism because people start courting before they go off to college. People start having interest once you start going through puberty and the hormones 16, and all of that. You start to have the interest there, right? And so it was in that stage in high school, and like you said. Oh, who you like? Who? Johnny Smith? Oh, the Smiths. Yeah, that boy got his head on his shoulders. I know his like pedigree. You knew the stock from which they came. This is not a foreign concept of involvement from your parents, the elders of the family, knowing because it was a community then. We talk about this community. We don't have a community now, right? But they knew each other. It was like, oh, who is people? Oh no, we don't mess with them. Like there was a litmus test of that, of vetting because. We wanted to know the stock you came from. People who breed dogs care more about the pedigree of who they gonna make and breed their dog with. Dog breeders, like I got a pit bull, I got a this, I'm not letting you. No, let me see the lineage of. Now I want to just see the dog. I want to see the lineage of the dog before I agree to let you mate with my dog. Your dog breeders. But with our offspring,
oh my gosh,
we don't care at all to know about the lineage, the pedigree, what stock you came from, what household you grew up in, what type of trauma they might be dealing with because of go figure. Just go fall in love, and then bring them to us once you got serious. Don't bring it to us before you got serious. Get serious with them, bring it to us, and then we'll have some type of formality vetting. We'll go out to eat one time. And he seems like a nice man. She seems like a sweet girl. This is not vetting. This is not really safety in the multitude of counsel.
Not at all.
Right? So when we look at putting these things together, all right, equipping our offspring to be ready to make adult decisions at a young age, and I'll add this on to the young marriage part. because some people are like, well, there's no age. You guys, we need to stop. I hear this. We need to stop pushing people to get married young. One, nobody's pushing for people to get married young, except for us, right? Like, that's not the common ideology. The numbers are showing people are getting married older and older. And if anything, we're trying to pacify and make people feel good about getting married later in life, right? It's okay. We want to go to the anecdotal extremes of, you know, you gotta stop telling women they can't go chase their career and because I know my girlfriend, she got married at 40 and had her first baby at 42. Okay, like we're gonna pick the one needle in the haystack, right? We know that's not the norm, right? Okay, but
and we don't know what she had to go through to have that baby at 42. Chances are, because that is a very high risk pregnancy. She was under all kind of doctor's watches. But it probably was some type of in vitro or something else for her to have that baby. Could have been natural, but if you haven't had a child in your 30s, around that time, it is very hard to get pregnant when you are in your 40s.
And let's not forget to bring back in all of what about the emotional baggage and trauma, because you weren't not in relationships and you weren't a virgin till you were 40, right? 40-year-old virgin wasn't even a good movie. It ain't showing good in real life. Like, what are we talking about? So you was out here, you know, anyway. So when we look at the young marriage, you know, aspect of it, one of the reasons that we want to really, really emphasize, you know, the young marriage is because there are different milestones that you should reach at different time frames. Okay, you know, it's not that everybody has the exact same time, but guess what? When you are a baby inside of the womb, and you go for the what's it called?
Ultrasound.
The ultrasound, right? You go for the ultrasound, and so many weeks they're looking for the development of the heart. Look at so many weeks they're looking for development of the brain. There's different milestones that you hit. When a newborn is born, after so many days, you should be able to hold your head up. After so many months, you should be able to transition on to start having some solid food, right? There's milestones for in pregnancy, newborn,
don't point at me though.
Toddler, definitely not. Toddler, adolescent, preteen, teenage, right? All of your prefrontal cortex is not developed till you're 25. Okay, gotcha. All the way through life. So within a range though, right? Everybody doesn't do everything at the exact same time. Our daughter started walking at 7, 8 months, 7.5, 8 months. Our son didn't start walking till 13 plus months.
He was 13.
13 plus months, right? We weren't panicked because within the range. Now, if it would have got to 24, 36 months, we're concerned. So nobody's saying you got to be married by 22, right? No. Well, there's a range, right? But if you've reached 30, 35, 40, 45 years old, and you could get married anytime. I know people that got married at 50. Okay, we got it. We understand anything can happen, but we are not meant to be on this journey alone. You're not meant to go through life without relationship and partner. And again, this conversation about generational wealth. How you gonna have generational wealth if you ain't built the generation? And so we're not meant to go on this journey alone. And when you get to certain developmental milestones, if you desire marriage in life and you've reached 35, 40 years old and you haven't developed and worked through whatever you need to be able to get on the page and partner with somebody for life, there's something off developmentally. I'm going to just say it. There's something off developmentally where you cannot partner with somebody and you're 35, 40 years old.
Or you haven't partnered with somebody.
Right. And you haven't. If that's a goal. Now, if you're saying, hey, my goal, if you're saying, hey, it's not a goal, I don't want to get married. I'm going to be, a month. I've taken a vow of celibacy. I'm going to be, a monk for the rest of my, okay, cool. We're not talking about you, but you probably ain't watching this YouTube stream right now.
Right.
Okay.
I think what they do is they say it's a goal and they just provide lip service to it. They'll say, oh, this is a goal of mine, but they're steadily chasing career or chasing education. And whatever you're chasing after, whatever you're running for is what your goal is. And so we talk about, the age ranges that you were given. Would you say the age range would be like 18 to 25, somewhere in that
18 to 25, I think is probably
18 to 25 is that range. But people are afraid because they're not setting that as a priority. Education is always the priority. And so when they get those different suitors, when girls in college, because that's your best opportunity is between those ages, and you have the most opportunity when you are in a college setting. And so when they get along in those times, they have not been prepared to prioritize marriage. They are putting the priority on education. Oh no, I can't do that. But guess what? You can do both. You can do both. It doesn't have to be either or. And nobody is saying that you have to have a child while you are pursuing your goals and going to college. But guess what? I have several friends that had children in school that were pursuing. I had a friend of mine, she was pursuing her doctorate degree and went back undergrad, was undergrad, then went on to get her doctorate. And she had 2 kids while pursuing her undergraduate and pursuing her doctorate degree. She was married. And guess what? Those kids are well-adjusted children, flourishing, and she did it while she was married. And she had 2 children along that journey. So you still can do these different things married. I don't know why we feel like everything has to be accomplished before we get married.
Right, because it's going to be easier while you're young to get a mate for marriage and more difficult to grow a career. But later on in life, it's going to be more difficult to get a mate and easier to get a career. So like, this accomplished, friend or anybody that you know that's accomplished, right? That's later in life. If they have a healthy marriage, it's going to be more difficult for you to replace a spouse than to get another job or career. I can get another career. To find another Yolanda, it's going to be something else, right? My wife could go out there and get a job. To get another me is just going to be impossible.
Impossible.
Right? So later in life, getting a spouse, y'all talk about it. It's hard,
Everybody got what? Piss in the pool.
It's piss
That's so
in the dating pool. Right?
That's so funny to me.
But like when you're like, so why not take advantage while you're young? Listen, I want to wrap with this. When we look at the symbols of the marriage ceremony, like if we just started to actually take the symbols seriously, like symbols are supposed to be a representation of something, right? Like when you see, if you saw like a white illuminated triangle and a red arrow pointing in a hallway, you would think, oh, the exit is probably that way, right? You would, even if it didn't say exit on it, it was a white sign lit up and it had a red arrow that way. You would think, oh, that's probably the way to the exit. It was a symbol, but there's actually an exit over there somewhere. If you had the symbol without the actual thing, like it's pointless. So in the wedding ceremony, there are a lot of symbols. Okay, well, even before the marriage, right? The man is supposed to ask the father for his blessing in the in the hand, having the daughter's hand in marriage. He's supposed to ask for the blessing, right? And then at the wedding, the father gives away the daughter, right? And then the bride wears a white dress. Okay. They make vows before their God and the community, their family, and people, loved ones that are around. And then they're presented to this community afterwards as Mr. and Mrs. James Penn Jr. or Mr. and Mrs. whoever. And then there's a reception and people toast and people give speeches and people talk about how they're going to be there for this couple. Right? Those are all symbols.
Oh, I hate that we've got away from some of those traditional values, but go ahead.
Right? Those are all symbols. So what's supposed to actually be behind the symbols? Right? It's supposed to actually be not just a sign, but it's actually supposed to be something that backs that up, right? What's behind the symbol of a man asking for a father's permission to have his daughter's hand in marriage? Because he's supposed to be vetted by that man.
Right. And he's been vetted along the whole process. So it wasn't this one time that he went and asked for the hand. And even in that, he's still very nervous when he's going to this father because he knows the levity of gravity. He knows the gravity of, I'm about to ask her father if she can now leave his house and be my wife. So he knows the gravity of that. And so that used to mean something a long time ago, but it won't even that long ago. Maybe 50, 60 years ago, that used to mean something.
So let me pose this question. How can I even grant you permission to take my daughter's hand in marriage and I don't know you?
It's a formality.
What kind of father?
Mm.
What kind of father? This young man comes to me. Hey, Mr. Penn, I would like your permission and your blessing to marry your daughter.
Don't met him one time.
And I done met him once. I done met him twice. I don't know you.
Mm-mm.
I don't know you. So okay. So
and
then,
something as precious as your daughter, someone as precious, irreplaceable. Now I'm going to release you into the hands of this man, and he's supposed to be your husband and provide, protect, lead you.
which takes us to the next step. The father walks his daughter down the aisle and he gives her away. Who gives this woman away? I do, right? And you're giving her to this man that you didn't vet because it was just formality, the symbol of him asking for, your blessing. Okay, you haven't vetted him, and now you're going to give him away, and he's going to take your last name off and put his last name on because it was your last name that protected her, that provided her, that led her through these 18, 20, 22 years, whatever age she's in. It's been your last name that was her covering that whole time. And he's going to take your last name off and put his last name on, meaning he's supposed to assume the responsibility of protecting and providing and leading at this point. But you don't even know this joker. You don't even really know this joker, right? And then the bride wears a white dress. That's a symbol.
Yeah, it was. It means nothing now. A white dress represented purity. And it really doesn't mean anything at all. So, it's what it meant. It meant purity. And you could even watch some of the older sitcoms that, not even older, but in the 80s, the 80s sitcoms, the 90s sitcoms, like, she wearing white? And you used to have to wear that off cream color, that cream, because people knew, because it was a community, people knew that you was out here doing what you did. And so you wouldn't dare
wear no white.
Exactly walk down the aisle in a white dress. But that symbol no longer means she is a virgin or she is chaste or anything like that. It just means, okay, well, it's a pretty white dress.
And then you take vows, actual promises, right? Not just some flowery poem about how much you love each other, how you feel about it. By the time you walk down the aisle, we kind of figure out like each other, okay?
Yeah.
People didn't come to hear about how much you like the person. You're supposed to make promises for better or worse, in sickness and in health, right? And again, when you're doing this younger, you start to build together, you have a different level of fidelity that is built in when you attach with somebody younger versus let's both just build up and then we'll merge, we'll merge these corporations. We'll merge these. We've created habits on our own and we're going to try to merge them, to like, I was talking to one of my mentees today and I was talking to him about, he was talking about just budgeting and finance. I was like, so help me out because it's been so long since I've had to budget without, a family for groceries. Like, I don't even know for a second, man. I was like, well, matter of fact, I never even really budgeted.
You never
as a single man, right? Because because we've been together since I was 19 years old. So having built a life of habits, of lifestyle, of living by yourself for 15, 20 years, and then somebody else has done it for 10, 15, 20 years, and then y'all trying to come together, that doesn't create the same type of bond. And not saying it's impossible. People do it, right? We're talking about putting you in the best position, putting your children in the best position for generational wealth, right? You got to remember in this whole conversation, we're not talking about an average conversation because generational wealth itself is not something average. So for average people, let them do average things, okay? But if you want above average results, then you got to do above average things. And then finally, when you're presented to the community as Mr. and Mrs. James Penn Jr. or whatever the name is, right? When you're presented and then you just have a reception and a party and people toast and they give you input and wisdom and they're supposed to be there for you, right? We got these signs that be at weddings about, is this the bride side or the groom side? Now the popular thing is, choose a seat, not a side. We're all family once the knot is tied. BS. Another sign that is meaningless. Because after everybody come to the wedding over that weekend and the rehearsal dinner and then the wedding and the reception and the wine is devoured and the cake has been eaten, everybody go about their business and there's no community, there's no support for this couple. So we wouldn't advocate for young marriage, chaste marriage, arranged marriage if you weren't going to actually have a family merger where now we have two families come together, right? Because as a husband and a wife, and we have a daughter, and there's a husband and a wife, and they have a son, and then they know us and our pedigree, and we know them and their pedigree, and we have been involved in this couple coming together, right? And we've been able to give them counsel and input and wisdom and make sure that they're on the same page. Once they get married, it's not over in terms of the support at this point, which also answers a lot of the questions people have about, well, the young man at 22 years old, he's not ready financially. Well, if we're talking about an exceptional conversation, generational wealth, how we building, like, how you think my son-in-law ain't gonna have opportunity inside of my company, my corporation, nepotism? We see it all the time. We're on the other end of it. We complain about it. Oh, I work at this job, and they hired me to come in, and I got way more experience, than Junior, but he made more money than me. They got me training him because he taking over for his daddy. That's the way it's supposed to be. Yes, A students work for A students learn from B students to work for C students. So this B student that taught your A student behind to work for a C student because he ain't had to do nothing but make C's because he was at college just to network and find the sharpest minds that were going to come work for his daddy company, right? And so, yeah, he a C student, and you going to come in with your master's degree, and you prioritize, not family and generational success and wealth. You prioritize education, you get to the bag, and now you mad because they done hired you in, right? And you 30, 35 years old, and you training Junior that's, 25, 26, 27 years old. You training him, and you know more than him. He make money than you, but you training him to take over, his daddy's company. Because you got the management experience, and you got the MBA, and you got all of that type of stuff.
Happens all the time.
It's supposed to be that way. Well, how about we start doing it?
Right.
So my son-in-law, he ain't got to. Well, he ain't financially. He gonna be all right. Cause we're a village. This is where the village comes in now. As a village, this is how we're going to support this young couple. We're not going to say, "Oh, I got married, toast, speech at the reception. Now go off and be successful in your young marriage." No, marriage is fragile no matter what age you get married. It's fragile in the beginning. And so there needs to be a village of support to come together and cultivate, hey, this is a new marriage, this is a new couple, this is the next generation, this is the next lineage in success, right? And yeah, estate planning is important, but inheritance is what you leave for somebody. A legacy is what you leave in them. And so we're going to leave some things in there. We're going to guide them even through the early stages of their marriage, at any stage that they're going to need that support. We're going to be there for them. And that's what a village is.
That's right.
So listen, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us on this evening. Appreciate all the comment and the feedback. Make sure you tap in with us, because every single Sunday night we're coming to you live. And between now and next week, between now and the next time our paths cross, you go out there, design a type of life that you deserve for you and your family, and we'll see you on the journey. Good night.